The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 6th of December, here on Knock Network. We are on episode 140, January 6th. I think it's in December. This video or here on Knock Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported on mainstream media. Shout out to the guys Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario. For the awesome intro track originally recorded by the Moody Blues with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Terry Simpson, along with the one and only Buffo Various, who has chosen all of our stories from us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Buffo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad.
Do not lick that toad. It's great to be back. It is. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since we did a show because, holidays and everyone was enjoying the festivities of Christmas and New Year's. But we're back now, and it is great to be back. I know I was gone for a couple of weeks before that with all the chaos and moving in my life. But we're finally back and settled in and all ready to go again.
We are all ready to go. And that's, this first news article. Oh, come on. I clicked it and it didn't do it. Let's try this again. Yes, we are on a new year. We're ready to go. And yeah, no, you had me served right up to a platter and I dropped the ball. Okay. Now let's bring that up. There it is. Okay. So this new article comes for this new year. First article is from microdose.buzz, the psychedelic industry in 2025, a new era of healing and transformation, exploring the future of psychedelics, innovations, challenges, and transformations in mental health and awareness. And this is wellness. And this is written by Madison Roberts. Yeah, what a great article this is. Why don't you start us out, Miss?
Absolutely. As 2025 unfolds, the psychedelic industry is poised at a critical juncture with advancements in clinical applications, regulatory changes, and cultural acceptance reshaping its landscape. Leaders across the field foresee a future where psychedelics play a pivotal role in addressing mental health challenges, improving accessibility, and fostering holistic well-being. Below, industry experts share their insight into key trends and opportunities that will define the psychedelic sector in the coming year. The psychedelic industry in 2025 will see significant advancements in clinical applications, particularly treating post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and addiction, as research continues to validate their therapeutic potential, notes Dr. Marcus Plosier, Chief Innovation Officer at Open Mind Health. Regulatory frameworks will expand cautiously with growing emphasis on training clinicians and ensuring patient safety. Commercial interests will surge, but ethical concerns around accessibility and equality will change the field. Psychedelics may also gain traction as tools for wellness and creativity, driving broader cultural acceptance. The industry's success will depend on balancing scientific rigor, responsible use, and equitable access, shaping a paradigm shift in mental health care and human well-being. Despite the promise, challenges remain, particularly in navigating regulatory hurdles. Yossi Fischler, co-founder and CEO of Joyous, highlights the impact of regulatory decisions. The FDA's decision to reject MDMA-assisted psychotherapy this year will usher in a response from the psychedelic industry in 2025. Aimed at addressing some of the agency's concerns. While disappointing, one positive result was an increased focus on treatment aspects like safety and, importantly, accessibility. Fischler also emphasizes the growing role of ketamine as a legal alternative. Manageable at-home treatment strategies like oral delivered ketamine microdosing will continue in 2025 to exemplify the potential of the class by ensuring access and affordability regardless of regulatory status.
A pivotal concern for companies is how to navigate the clinical trial requirements. Joseph Tucker, PhD director and CEO of Enveric, explains the pressing need for the new neuropsychiatry options for clinicians and patients, coupled with the fascination of psychedelics as possible drugs, generated immense interest. But in 2024, with the Lycos review, we saw that the FDA is still going to require psychedelic drug candidates to resolve functional unblinding concerns in their clinical trial design, which is pretty tall order. In 2025, this will likely lead to two separate paths unfolding. First, companies will late-stage hallucination-inducing agents will be working out how to modify their clinical trials to mitigate the unblinding concerns. Second, the new field of neuroplastogens, drug candidates inspired by the first generation psychedelics, but differentiated in they don't generate hallucinations and can be anticipated to break into scientific and even public consciousness. Tucker adds, the two major proofs required of this emerging class of neuropsychiatry, I can't say the word, will likely make significant strides in 2025. First, demonstrating that such molecules can be generated that you do not induce hallucinations the way classic psychedelics do. And second, showing evidence of measurable beneficial neurophysiological impacts. As the science takes off, the clinical trial setting, it could provide new options for the treatment of mental disorders like treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Continue your trip. Oh, that's an ad. My bad.
At the state level, progressive policies are paving the way for broader access to psychedelic therapies. Paula Shevako founder of Canacor Group and PS Law Group, observes, due to the rising prevalence of mental health treatments, more states are likely to implement task forces like Minnesota to evaluate the benefits and challenges of developing regulatory framework for psychedelic businesses and allowing resources for further research into their therapeutic potential. As Colorado joins Oregon in permitting the administration of psychedelic medicine, the industry faces critical challenges ensuring these treatments are affordable to broaden patient access and improve equity in mental health care, equity in mental health care. A notable demographic shift is occurring within the microdosing community, particularly among women. Annie Rock, an intuitive life coach, predicts microdosing will increase in 2025, especially in women over 40. More women are exploring psychedelics as a way to heal and manage midlife. Microdosing offers an accessible, affordable option that can be done without being away from their families. I would love to see more moms given access and information about the transformational power of low-dose psychedelics. The therapeutic potential of psychedelics is also being explored in relational contexts. Dr. Chandra Kalifian, co-founder and CEO of Anamori, remarks, "We are seeing a huge increase in interest in psychedelic-assisted couples therapy, and we think that this field will continue to grow as more people learn about how psychedelics can help heal relationships. In 2025, we expect that ketamine-assisted couples therapy, which is legal now, will become mainstream, and we hope to see more research using MDMA, psilocybin, and other psychedelics with couples." Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is. Holistic care is also gaining momentum in 2025 by blending traditional and innovative practices. Sherry B. Kaplan, LCSW, founder of Connected Wellness, envisions integrative mental health with solidify its role as a cornerstone in holistic patient care, blending traditional therapies with initiative modalities like biophysical or biopsychosocial evaluations, mindfulness practices, and evidence-based plant-assisted therapy. As we continue to recognize the interconnectedness of mind, body, and spirit, more mental health frameworks will adopt personalized, multidisciplinary approaches to address the root cause of distress rather than just managing symptoms. Finally, a holistic, integrative perspective is gaining traction in the industry. Christy Knott, CEO and founder of Microflow, emphasizes the psychedelic industry in 2025 will see a profound shift from purely clinical frameworks toward more integrative, individualized approaches that honor the mind, body, and spirit connection. The future will belong to those who merge cutting edge science with reverence for those ancient tools, offering transformation not just for individuals, but for collective consciousness as well. The psychedelic industry is on the cusp of transformation, balancing scientific innovation with ethical culture considerations. As leaders navigate this rapidly evolving space, their focus on equity, accessibility, and holistic well-being will shape a future of unprecedented potential for health and consciousness. I like that. That was very, very, very felt heart. Thank you, Madison Roberts, for the great story.
Yeah, that was a great story. We've reported on Lycos and their MDMA assisted trials and stuff, and how they ran into problems last year trying to get this pushed through. But I think that they will. I think 2025 is going to be a whole new year for all of this.
Well, it's different legislation in the states now. Like it's going to be a whole new regime. So in Canada, it sounds like your politics are changing now as we speak as well. So
Thank God Trudeau is gone. He has resigned. That's a great thing for Canada.
our next article is concerning medicine men, tribal and indigenous cultures, and even a lot of people. So this is from the ICTnews.org, and this is peyote threatened by psychedelic renaissance. Native use of sacred cactus under threat from harvesting by advocates of peyote and decriminalization, as well as agriculture, holocene, and wind farm developments. And this was written by the Associated Press January 1st. Deepa Beth and Jesse Wardasky.
So this is an interesting article, and peyote is something, I mean, we've touched on the show before, but you don't hear a lot about peyote. But apparently it is growing in interest in that psychedelic realm, and it is under threat. And I get that, right? I mean, these cactuses take years and years and years to mature to the point that you can use them. So yeah. So this comes to us out of Hebronville, Texas. In this corner of southern Texas, the plump cacti seem to pop out of arid dust and cracked earth like magic dumplings. It's only here and in northern Mexico that the bluish green peyote plant can be found growing naturally, nestled under thorny mesquite, acacia, and blackbrush. For many North American church members who call this region the Peyote Garden, the plant is sacrosanct. I can't pronounce that. Sacrosanct and an inextricable part of their prayer and ceremony. Oh my God. Welcome back to 2025, eh? It's believed that a natural healer and indigenous communities have counted on for their physical and mental health as they've dealt with trauma of colonization, displacement, and erosion of culture, religion, and language. Lack of access for religious use. The cactus contains a spectrum of psychedelic or psychoactive alkaloids, the primary one being the hallucinogen mescaline, and it's coveted for those psychedelic properties. Even though it's a controlled substance under federal law, an exemption afforded by a 1994 amendment to the American Indian Religious Freedoms Act made it legal for Native Americans to use, possess, and transport peyote for traditional religious purposes. For over 2 decades, North American practitioners of peyotism, those numbers in the US are estimated at 400,000, have raised the alarm about lack of access to peyote, which they reverently call the medicine. They say poaching and excessive harvesting of slow-growing cactus, which flowers and matures over 10 to 30 years, are endangering the species and ruining its delicate habitat. And I believe that because, again, these take so long to grow to maturity. That, you know, if everyone's going out there and running around grabbing cactuses, they're probably causing some damage.
Yeah. Native American church members say the situation has worsened with demands from advocates of the psychedelic renaissance seeking to decriminalize peyote and make it more widely available for medical research treatment of various ailments. Agriculture, housing developments, wind farms in the region, and the border wall are also damaging the habitat, expert says. A vast majority of peyote people agree the plant must be protected and should be out of reach for medical researchers, Silicon Valley investors, and other groups advocating peyote decriminalization. But there are diverse opinions with the Native American Church on how to accomplish that goal. Well, at least one, spearheaded by the Native American church leaders, has begun efforts to conserve and propagate peyote naturally in its habitat using philanthropic dollars. Others in the church are more suspicious of investors' intentions, saying that fear exploitation would rather get funding from the U.S. government to protect peyote. Peyote embodies the creator's spirit. Welcome me, Piva. Uh, I can't read tribal. But Daryl
Mhm.
Redclaw, who is Ogala Lakota, remembers at age 4 using peyote and singing ceremonial songs at all night peyote ceremonies with his family. Peyote has always been a forging connection with the Creator, said Redclaw, the vice president of the Native American Church of North America. Our people were not religious people. We were prayer people. Frank Dayish, former president of the Navajo Nation and chairperson of the Council of the Peyote Way of Life Coalition, compared peyote to Christ and Catholicism. Peyote is my religion, he said. Everything in my life has been based on prayers through sacrament. Wow.
Yeah. Adrian Primo, who is Yankton Sioux and Apache, says he grew up hearing the story of a malnourished and dehydrated Apache woman who fell behind her group during a forced relocation by the U.S. government in 1830. She was about to give up on life as she laid close to the earth, and when she heard a plant speaking to her, Primo said, the peyote was telling her, eat me and you will be well. She carried this plant back to Apache medicine men and elders who meditated and prayed with it, said Primo. He believes the Native American church and what would become the peyote way of life was unveiled during this spiritual quest. Peyote is not just a medicinal herb. It's a spiritual guide and a North Star, said Primo, who comes from five generations of peyote people. The plant has been a guiding light amid their traumatic history. It gave us hope and helped us process our thoughts, emotions, and life purpose, he said. An initiative to conserve and protect peyote. In October 2017, the National Council of Native American Churches purchased 605 acres in Herberonville, Texas, to establish a peyote preservation and a spiritual home site that is now run by the Indigenous Peyote Conservation Initiative, or IPCI. Stephen Benally, a Navajo elder from Sweetwater, Arizona, and an IPCI board member, remembers his annual pilgrimages to the peyote gardens with his family. He recalls losing access to the gardens after the peyotero system took over, where the government licensed peyoteros harvested the button-like tops of the plants by the thousands and sold them to the Native American church members. This meant that the Native American people could not freely go into privately owned ranches and prayfully harvest peyote as they had done for generations. They lost their sacred connection with the land, Benally said. It wasn't until he threw open the gate of their sprawling ranch, affectionately called the 605, that Benally felt connected once again. He was so overcome by emotion that he placed a sign at the entrance with the words, "This is real." It felt like we were finally living in what we dreamed, prayed, and talked about, he said. One of Benally's favorite spots on the property is a hilltop bench, a tranquil corner where visitors have placed prayer notes, painted rocks, and other offerings to a nearby cluster of naturally sprouted peyote. Finale sits on the bench, inhaling the gentle breeze and taking in the stillness. Our belief is these plants, these animals, these birds are just like us, he said. They can hear us, they can understand us, they have their powers, and they have their place and a purpose and a reason, just like us. The peyote preservation is a conservation site where the plant is not harvested, but propagated and replanted naturally on its habitat without chemicals, said Miriam Volat, executive director for the nonprofit that oversees it. Native Americans who can produce their tribal identification cards can camp at the preservation and prayerfully harvest from amiable source surrounding ranches, she said. Interesting.
The goal is to restore peyote and its habitat, making it abundant in the region within the next 50 years. Peyote grown in their nursery is under the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency's watchful eye, she said. Licensed to operate, the nonprofit tries to balance welcoming and satisfying the agent's requirement to secure the plant behind locked gates with camera monitoring. The debate over peyote conversation. Those trying to protect peyote disagree on whether it should be grown outside its natural habitat, while scientists and conservationists say it's essential for the protection of the species. Many Native American church members say doing so would dilute its sacred nature. Keeper Trout, a research scientist, a co-founder of Texas-based Catholic Conversation Institute, remembers how abundantly peyote grew in the region during the 1970s. It's all but disappeared. It's like walking on mattresses, he said. Trout empathizes with those who object on religious grounds, but he believes people should be able to cultivate harvest anyway. With a little help, Trout is confident the resilient plant can survive. But many Native American church members say where plant grows matters. The ceremonial protocols were bestowed by the Creator's grace and reserved through storytelling, said Herschel Clark, secretary of the Tiso chapter of the Azibi of Dine Nation in Arizona. This is why we don't support greenhouses, growing it outside its natural habitat or synthesizing it to make pills, Clark said. Red Cloud fears those changes would harm its sacredness. Then it just become a drug that people depend on rather than a spiritual medicine, he said. Funding peyote preservation and conservation efforts have been a challenge as well. Native American Church of North America is calling on the U.S. government to uphold its obligation to protect and preserve peyote in its natural habitat in southern Texas, which includes financial incentives for landowners, said Lightcloud. His organization is asking for a $5 million federal grant to jumpstart such a program. Wow.
Wow. Hey, yeah. IPCI started with seed money from River Styx Foundation, which is run by Cody Swift, a psychotherapist and prominent supporter of psychedelic research or therapy research. The organization continues to seek philanthropic dollars to carry the conservation effort forward and is not opposed to receiving funding from the U.S. government, Volat said. But we're not waiting for it, she said. There is suspicion and skepticism about Swift and other investors' intentions in some corners of the Native American church, Clark said. Swift has said in interviews that IPCI's goal is to preserve peyote in its natural habitat under the leadership and guidance of Native American peyote people. Stans Volat, his co-director of the foundation, also affirms. Demand for peyote exceeds supply. There is no question that opening peyote up to a broader market will create a supply crisis and increase access for those who have financial resources, said Kevin Feeney, a senior social sciences lecturer at Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington, who has studied the commodification of peyote. Indigenous people would struggle to access their sacred plant while seeing others use it in a way they deem profane, he said. Peyote supply remains limited for the Native American Church. Today in southern Texas, only 3 licensed peyoteros are legally allowed to harvest the plant for sale to church members. Zuluma Julie Morales, based in Rio Grande City, is one of them. She inherited the business from her father, Mauro Morales, who died 2 years ago. She has been out in the field since she was 10. Now 60, she says the peyote habitat is dwindling, not because of peyoteros who harvest legally and ethically, but because of illegal poaching. She remembers her father gathering enough peyote to fill a dozen large trays while she can barely fill one. Even though she is Mexican American and a Catholic, Morales, who charges 55 cents a button, considers it a privilege to provide peyote for ceremonial purposes. Her father, whose customers called Grandpa, hosted ceremonies for Native people every year, and she has been a keen observer. As Mexican Americans, we value our tradition, she said. This is their tradition, and it's a beautiful way for us to be a part of that in our own way. Teaching future generations at IPCI, one of the main goals is to teach future generations the value of getting back to their ancestors' spiritual and healing ways, said Sandor Ironrope, an Oglala Lakota spiritual leader and president of the Native American Church of South Dakota. At least 200 people gathered on IPCI's grounds over Thanksgiving weekend, learning about peyote through panels, discussions, ceremony, and prayer. We put on our moccasins and our footprints in this place, Ironrope said. The hope is that these children, the next generation, will see the therapeutic value in getting rid of their phones and learning about what is right in front of them. Ironrope said, this is how he is fulfilling his responsibility for future generations. You can pray all you want, but you're going to have to meet the Creator halfway somewhere, he said. You're going to have to implement prayer into action. I see this as prayer in action. Sorry. And that's the end of the article.
It's a very nice article, and that actually brings us to medication time.
That's right, folks. It is time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors. And then we will return with more articles Bufo has chosen making mainstream media news.
My computer's froze for a second. This is embarrassing.
We'll be back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
We will. Hold on. Let me see if I can do it through here. This is me singing for you guys. Yeah, welcome back for the first day, eh? Commercial set. Here we are.
Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at knocknetwork.com.
Discover the treasure trove of flavors at Miss Jolly's Munchie Factory. Satisfy your cravings with our award-winning treats. Follow us on Instagram at Captain Rogers 705. Let Miss Jolly's Munchie Factory lift your spirits. Experience the comforting embrace of our freshly prepared soups and infused cornbread.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year. Movie nights. Spotlights on entertainment. And live on location coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. Check out our webpage at www.noknetwork.com.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyndinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Hold it in, feel it in your ribs.
Smoke Signals, Tyndinaga.
Check us out in Tyndinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyndinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Tune in daily to NOK Network's diverse podcasting lineup. Ganja News Update, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Tara Simpson and Ron McNabb. Waking Up with the Wayniac, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific with Tombstoner Wayne Cruz from Tombstone, Arizona. Grow 420, Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern with Ron McNabb. Psychedelic Reporters, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Hobbies Puppets and Tara Simpson. Peace, News and Views, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Sir Stevo and Kim Cooper. Thursdays we have Open Your Eye with Kim Cooper and Tara Simpson, 8 p.m. Eastern. Followed by Thursday Night Vibes at 9:15 p.m. Eastern with Master and Mama Rochi. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh airs 7 nights a week with our rotating joint hosts, nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in to all the podcasting on NOK Network.
Dudettes, enjoy the show, man.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Let's get at it. I can't see my lines because my computer still froze.
Because we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So here we go, folks.
All right, our next article. All right, come on. Stop freezing on me. All right, here we are. Our next article is brought from Psychedelic Post here. Sidepost.org. Psychedelic therapy ignited a harrowing mental health crisis again for one patient, but she would do it again. And this was written from Eric Dolan.
Yeah, so this comes to us January 3rd of this year, so it's a very new article. A recent case study published by BJ Psych Open sheds light on the complex and sometimes contradictory outcomes of psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy as treatment-resistant depression. The case describes a participant in a clinical trial who experienced increased suicidal thought and severe eating difficulties after receiving a psilocybin dose. Despite these challenges, the participant ultimately found the experience beneficial, leading to significant life changes that were not reflected in traditional depression rating scales. Psilocybin, a psychoactive compound found in certain magic mushrooms, has garnered attention for its potential to treat conditions like depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. In clinical settings, psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy involves administering a controlled dose of the compound in a supportive environment, often accompanied by preparation and integration sessions. These sessions help participants process their experiences, making them an integral part of the therapy. The treatment aims to facilitate profound psychological insight or emotional breakthroughs that could alleviate symptoms of mental illness. Psilocybin's effect on the brain, including its ability to reduce rigidity in thought patterns and foster emotional openness, have been linked to therapeutic benefits. However, the altered states of consciousness it induces can also lead to challenging experiences. This dual nature of psilocybin underscores the importance of careful clinical oversight and support through the therapy process. The participant, who was given the pseudonym Zakara in the case report, had struggled with depression for over a decade, with her current episode lasting 2.5 years. Previous treatments, including standard antidepressants, had been ineffective. She entered the trial with significant depressive symptoms, moderate social anxiety, and a history of suicidal thoughts, though she had no immediate plans to act on them. On the day of her psilocybin dose, Zakara was administered 25 milligrams of the compound in a controlled environment. The psilocybin session initially appeared promising. Zakara recalls themes and imagery from her childhood, which invoked a feeling of goodness I haven't felt since I was 7. But the relief was short-lived. She described the experience as one of stark confrontation with suppressed emotions. The psilocybin ripped the lid off and shoved it under my nose, she said. Smell that. So while it was extremely unpleasant, it was ultimately needed and important that I finally acknowledged that I couldn't live like that anymore. For Zakara, the unmasking of emotional pain revealed the extent of her struggle, which she had hidden even from herself. The mask I wore every day in order to hide from everyone how unwell I was inside was blown to smithereens. I realized that I had not been an armor to protect the vulnerable core. It was a brutal cage that I had slowly been wasting away inside of. Wow.
The immediate aftermath was marked by emotional and physical challenges. Zakara reported feeling hungover and described her mood as plummeting. Suicidal thoughts became more constant, and nausea prevented her from eating. I was more or less unable to eat anything without being feeling sick for the next few days. And then was so anxious I had very low appetite thereafter. I did little more than lie on the sofa and cry, she recounted. Her inability to eat extended for months, eventually leading to significant weight loss, hair thinning, and fading. During this time, she also experienced a resurgence of intrusive thoughts and anxiety, describing the struggle as scrambling for comfort and unable to find it anywhere. Amongst these challenges, Zakara began to notice subtle, meaningful challenges over time. She started making small adjustments to her daily life, such as joining the gym and quitting her part-time real job for one that felt more forced fulfilling. She also reconnected with activities that brought her joy and began exploring old hobbies. One small but symbolic shift stood out to her. Before participating, I brushed my teeth if I remembered, which was rare. Felt like it rarer still. I had social public facing events since I brushed my teeth every day. These functional improvements were not without setbacks. Sakara experienced a second serious adverse months after dosing. During a period of personal upheaval, feeling isolated and overwhelmed, she counted pills for a potential overdose and started writing a suicide note, but stopped herself. She described this phase as an ongoing battle between despair and a new awareness of her emotional landscape. I felt as though I had discovered a sick truth of life that no matter how you try to climb to better things, you will never succeed. But to accept it was a pain that could only be cured by suicide, she explained. Despite these struggles, Zakira's connection to her emotion continued to grow. Things felt for real for the first time in so long I can't remember. Not just a haze that often felt like a simulation, she reflected. The new emotional clarity allowed her to take lasting changes, even as her depressive symptoms remained high on clinical rating scales. Reflecting on the experience, she remarked, "It's probably a puzzle I will be putting together until I die." But whereas before I was struggling with countless pieces that had no context, the trial experience gave me a glimpse of the pictures of the front of the box. By the end of the year, the follow-up secure described her as being in a better place overall, with a more stable mood and her appetite back to normal. And as her journey was fraught with challenges, she expressed the nuances of perspective on trials' impact. I don't want my experience to be used to warn against the use of psilocybin therapeutically, but I also want to be brushed aside as a fluke, as a non-responder. Oh, did I respond? Huh.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Sometimes they show you what you need to see, not what you want to see. And some people, as much as they want to heal, aren't necessarily ready to face those challenges. That's why they've hidden them for so long. So it's interesting that she recognizes basically that same pattern, right? I sometimes wonder if I'm a masochist or suffering from some kind of psilocybin Stockholm syndrome, because I've never regretted participating in the trial. And if I could go back in time, I would do it again. Case studies have inherent limitations. They focus on single individuals or small groups, making it difficult to generalize findings. The subjective nature of personal accounts can introduce bias, and outcomes may be influenced by factors unique to the individual, such as their life circumstances or prior experiences. In Zakara's case, her ability to guess she had received an active dose could have influenced her responses. Despite these limitations, case studies are valuable in highlighting areas for further research. Zakara's experience points to the need for more qualitative exploration of psilocybin therapy, particularly regarding its potential to worsen symptoms before leading to improvement. It also highlights the importance of long-term follow-up to better understand the lasting effects of treatment. As authors of the report concluded, this case illustrates that psilocybin administration could be followed by a worsening in suicidal ideation and prolonged adverse events that long outlast its acute effects. Paradoxically, it may lead to an improvement in functional outcome that is not clear on depression rating scales. As this is a single case report, no conclusion can be drawn, and further assessment is required to understand this phenomenon. Increasingly broader research aligns with this duality, suggesting that adverse experiences with psychedelics can sometimes yield positive mental health outcomes. For instance, a study published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology found that 84% of participants who experienced a bad trip with psilocybin later reported benefits, such as personal growth and improved well-being, despite the psychological difficulty. However, prolonged or particularly intense bad trips were linked to risks like self-harm and enduring psychological issues. Similarly, research from the Internal Journal of Drug Policy found that many psychedelic users employ storytelling to reframe distressing experiences, attributing personal insight and emotional breakthroughs to their challenging trips. The case report, Worsening Suicidal Ideation, Prolonged Adverse Events Following Psilocybin Administration in a Clinical Setting, case report, and thematic analyzation of one participant's experience, was authored by Murad Wahaba, Carolyn Hayes, Marcia Kelletter, and R. Hamish McAllister Williams. And that's the end of the story. But
that was a good one.
It was because, again, like she said, just because she had challenges and it didn't seem like a positive experience at that time, she's doing better. She's in a better place now. So sometimes we don't necessarily, as much as we want to heal, we don't want to face the things that we need to heal from. And that can create those challenges for some people, trying to work through what that means and what's actually going on. But the outcome seems to be positive in the end. So, sometimes it's not a bad trip. It just seems like a bad trip.
Right. It does. And as the world, even if you have a bad trip, I mean, it's like what this lady said. You feel it out. You work on it. That integration process that we did will help you look on that and stuff like that. But you got to be careful what you get, what you're doing when you're setting and just everything.
Absolutely.
This next article is basically a politician. Let's just get into it right away. This is from crime.com. This is Rick Perry says illegal psychedelic drug is ready for spotlight. The former governor touted ibogaine on Joe Rogan's podcast, and this is by Timothy Malcolm.
Very cool. Former Texas Governor Rick Perry has been pushing drugs for years now. Specifically, Perry is trying to educate the public about plant medicine, especially as it pertains to veterans and their mental health challenges. And now Perry says that with President-elect Donald Trump's second term about to start, the time is now to push one of these drugs further. Perry was a guest this week on Joe Rogan's Experience, the popular podcast hosted by the former news radio and Fear Factor star that's produced in Austin, sharing the dais with W. Brian Hubbard Esquire, the executive director of the American Ibogaine Initiative and the Reed Foundation. Perry extolled the virtues of ibogaine, a hot new psychedelic that's still illegal, but being touted as a treatment for addiction, brain injuries, and post-traumatic stress disorder. My job and our job is to be able to educate the people about this psychoactive plant medicine that is absolutely showing a stunning ability to bring people back to normalcy, Perry said, to literally give them their lives back. And that's so true because I have actually interviewed numerous patients and facilitators of ibogaine and always gotten positive reviews about, where they were and where they are now. Right.
Perry, who served as a governor of Texas between 2015 has been pushing psychedelics for nearly as long as the Lone Star State's highest office. His drug pusher story, which he recounted on Rogan's podcast, that started in 2006 when a vacation in Coronado Island, a hop from San Diego. There, he met a Houston sailor named Marcus Luttrell, who ultimately lived as the governor's manager for 2 years and began a long recovery from depression and anxiety. Now, Perry teamed up with Hubbard to promote ibogaine, a compound derived from a rainforest shrub in Central Africa. Ibogaine is currently a Schedule 1 status under the High Controlled Substances Act, meaning it no currently accepted medical use and high potential for abuse. It could induce fatal cardiac arrhythmias, according to a study published in Molecules in 2015 in the same category as heroin. Perry said that he said that he's convinced by ibogaine. He also thinks President-elect Donald Trump presumptive picks for federal office, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Health and Human Services, Jay Bhattacharya, National Institutes of Health, and Mehmet Oz, Center for Medicaid and Medicaid Services, could possibly help push the drug across the finish line and make it more available. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I see it happening. I can see this possibly going through, especially with the current panel coming on board. They all have a pretty extensive view on psychedelics and natural therapy. So fingers crossed for you guys down there in the States. There's never been a better time to see the cards kind of being laid out on the table in a good way. Perry said, I'm convinced, Joe, that once the general public understands what this is, how it works, how it can be used in a wonderful therapeutic way, and that lives can be saved at that particular time, I think this becomes a bit of a no-brainer, so to speak. And I would agree with that. Again, I've interviewed on Open Your Eye with Kim, numerous facilitators as well as patients of ibogaine who have used it to better their lives from years of substance abuse. And they're clean today and back to functioning normal members of society. Does it have its risks? Absolutely. That's why the facilitators need to be trained and run certain specific tests to make sure that you're not at a predisposition for those cardiac issues, because it's an alkaloid that can affect the cardiac rhythms. But again, if it's done in the right setting with the right tests, if it works, why are we not allowing people to get better?
I agree. And that brings us to our next article, where even if we do let people you're going to get some sort of backlash. So this next article, Amp the Guardian, Colorado city leaders and veterans clash over psychedelic therapy access. Conservative council members in Colorado Springs are debating broader psilocybin access, while veterans implore them for treatment. And this is written by Guardian staff and agency.
As Colorado becomes the second state to legalize psilocybin-assisted therapy this week, a clash is playing out in Colorado Springs, where conservative leaders are restricting access to the treatment over objections from some of the city's 90,000 veterans who have become flag bearers for psychedelic therapy to treat post-traumatic stress disorder. Colorado residents voted to legalize the therapeutic use of psilocybin, the chemical compound found in psychedelic mushrooms, in a 2022 ballot measure, launching 2 years of rulemaking before it could be used to treat conditions such as depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. This week, companies and people will be able to apply for licenses to administer the mind-altering drug through treatment. Will probably not be able to be available for some months as applications are processed. Colorado joins Oregon in legalizing psilocybin therapy though the drug remains illegal in most other states and federally. Over the last year, a growing number of Oregon cities have voted to ban psilocybin, while Colorado metros cannot ban the treatment under state law. Several conservative cities have worked to preemptively restrict what are known as healing centers. We reported on this before, where they're like making it so hard to even place it somewhere because it might be too close to a school, or it might be too close to, residential, or this or that. So we know how that's done, right? At a city council meeting in Colorado Springs this month, members were set to vote on extending the state's prohibition on healing centers from 1,000 square feet or 305 meters to 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers from certain locations such as schools. From the lectures, veterans implored them not to.
Can you keep that going? My computer's frozen.
Yep. We have an opportunity to support veterans, and it's really easy. It's a really easy one to say yes to, said Lane Ballone, a Special Forces veteran who said he has benefited from his own psychedelic experiences. Ballone argued that the restrictions in effect limited the number of centers and would mean longer wait lists for the treatments. Veterans have pulled in some conservative support for psychedelic therapy, managing to set it apart from other politically charged drug policies, such as legalizing marijuana. The distinction was made clear by the council member David Lenweber, who said that council meeting that marijuana was literally killing our kids. Did he really say that? And,
oh, wow.
And then he supported greater access to psilocybin therapy. Are you kidding me? Marijuana is killing people? Well, that's a first. I've never heard of that. But anyways.
Right. Well, psilocybin is far more restricted in Colorado than marijuana, which the state legalized in 2014. Psilocybin is decriminalized, but there will not be recreational dispensaries for the substance, which will be largely confined to licensed businesses and therapy sessions with licensed facilitator. Patients will have to go through a risk assessment, preliminary meetings, then follow-up sessions, and remain with a facilitator while under the drug's influence. The psilocybin will also be tested in the company, bankrolled and regulated by a state agency. Allowing broader access to the treatment has not been easy for most of the city council members, including their three who are veterans. Colorado Springs is home to several military installations, including the Air Force Academy. Local leaders have touted it as an ideal community for retired service members. I will never sit up here and criticize a veteran for wanting to find a medical treatment to fix or help the issues that they carry, said Randy Helms, the council president of himself. Still, he continued, do I think that is helpful to not just veterans, but to individuals? Probably so. Do I think it still needs to be tested under strict requirements? Yes. The Colorado Springs City Council passed the proposed restrictions. Research has shown promise for psychedelic drugs such as psilocybin and MDMA, also known as Molly, in helping people with conditions such as alcoholism, depression, PTSD, and scientific field remain in its relatively early stages. The study drug administration had not approved psilocybin to treat mental health conditions, and in August rejected the psychedelic MDMA to treat PTSD, a concern brought up by some Colorado Springs City Council members. A number of clinical trials are still underway for both drugs. Some researchers, advocacy groups, and veterans worry that the waiting on slow-moving bureaucracy, namely the FDA, carries risk as people come to struggle with mental illnesses. Advocates argue that psychedelic therapy offers an option to those from whom talk therapy alone and antidepressants have not helped. This is a crisis we are in. This is a tool that we can add to our toolbox, said Taylor West, executive director of the Healing Advocacy Fund, which advocates for psychedelic therapy. Oh my, this is a great article.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, there are much harder drugs floating around on our streets right now that people are using because of the trauma and mental health issues that they have. So, I mean, if they're turning a blind eye to people getting high on fentanyl and other substances, why are we not allowing this to help heal people? We know it's safe, right? Others express concerns over moving too fast. I'm very positive about the potential value, and I'm very concerned that we've gotten too far ahead of our skis, said Jeffrey Lieberman, a professor of psychiatry at Columbia University, who's been involved in studies of psychedelic drugs' therapeutic efficacy. The risks, said Lieberman, include customers being missiled and paying out of pocket for expensive treatments. He also said there were cases where the drugs can exacerbate some extreme mental health conditions, such as schizophrenia. In Oregon, where the treatments started in July of 2023, costs can reach $2,000 for one session. Of the 16,000 doses administered in the state, staff have only called 911 or taken a patient to the hospital 5 times. Those are pretty good odds. Ballone said he has carried his military experiences long after leaving the Special Forces. It started when he first heard artillery sirens wailing in a U.S. base in Iraq. His breath catching with fear for a few thudding moments. That fear kept him on edge when he returned stateside and found himself always keeping his back to the wall, looking for exits to the room he was in, never quite able to give himself fully to the music at a concert. A psychedelic experience with psilocybin, said Ballone, helped him to connect the fear that attached him to the war zone to the ceaseless anxiety at home. It didn't solve everything overnight, he said, but it did allow him to better identify when that humming fear was getting in the way of a joyful life. And I think that's so this is what we're up against, a team of lawmakers from the rich and powerful trying to stop us publishing stories they don't want you to see. Lobby groups with opaque funding who are determined to undermine facts about, this is just an ad.
Yeah, that's for the guard. Yeah.
So that's the end of the article. But again, I mean, they're dragging their heels on this therapy when they're allowing people to suffer and possibly do more harm than if they just allowed these treatments to take place and allow people to educate themselves on what they're taking before they take it. And we're not seeing horrible outcomes in any of the clinical trials. We're seeing maybe lack of outcome for some people, which, I mean, we're getting that in the pharmaceutical industry already. So some people may not respond to this treatment. Maybe they need a different psychedelic or a different integrated therapy with somebody else, right? Because again, connection plays a role in our healing as well. But long story short, these psychedelic therapies are actually helping more than they're harming. So we need to really speed this process up and start helping more people.
I agree. And in fact, 2025, I think, is going to be a whole different year of psychedelics. A little bit, I mean, already here in Louisiana, we're looking at hemp strict policies. So, regardless on who's in the big lighthouse, each state is going to have its own opinion. And the louder control of who controls it will be how legislation and how freely you can get this access to these meds.
Absolutely.
That brings us to thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on Knock Network and for tuning in to our video podcast on Knock Network's Rumble and YouTube page, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you enjoyed your update today on mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint host, Tara Simpson, and to Proofful of Variance for choosing the stories for us. And to you, the listener, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way out.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty